Everyone wants to be in Gryffindor. You knew this before you ever set foot in Hogwarts. The name travels differently from the others. It carries a particular weight in the wizarding world, a kind of cultural gravity that the other houses don't quite have. Gryffindor is the house of the brave, the house of the chosen, the house where the heroes come from. You grew up hearing this, absorbing it, and by the time the sorting hat touched your head, you already had a version of yourself prepared. The version that belonged there, that deserved it, that was ready for whatever came with the red and gold. You were not ready. This is not a story about magic or adventure or the friendships that last a lifetime, though all of those things are in here somewhere. This is a story about what it actually costs to be the kind of person Gryffindor asks you to be. What it takes from you across 7 years. What it leaves behind when the war is over and the castle is quiet and the version of you that walked through those doors as an 11-year-old is so far back in the distance you can barely make them out. Gryffindor does not ask for your comfort. It asks for your nerve, your courage, your willingness to walk into the thing that frightens you most and keep walking. And for years, most of the 7, this feels like a gift, like the best possible version of yourself being called forward. Then you find out what it cost. If this is the kind of story you want to follow all the way to the end, subscribe. Because we're just getting started. Level 1, the first year. The sorting hat takes 11 seconds. You count them, sitting on the stool in front of the entire school, with the hat's brim low over your eyes, and the great hall very quiet, and your heart doing something irregular in your chest. 11 seconds. Then it opens its brim and says the word, and the Gryffindor table erupts, and you walk toward the sound with your legs slightly unsteady, and someone moves to make space for you, and hands reach out, and you sit down, and someone puts food on your plate, and for approximately 4 minutes, you feel like you have arrived at exactly the right place in the world. This feeling is real. Remember that for later. It is not naive. It is not wrong. It is simply incomplete. The common room that night is loud and warm and red, and the fire is going, and the older students move through the space with a confidence that seems entirely natural to them. And you think, I'm going to learn how to do that. How to move through a place like you belong in it, like it was made for you. What nobody tells you on the first night is that Gryffindor doesn't give you confidence. It gives you the expectation of it. The house has a reputation to maintain, and the reputation has a weight, and the weight lands on every first year who sits at that table and accepts the cheering as a promise. You sleep well that night. The 4-poster bed, the red curtains, the sound of someone else breathing in the dark. You are 11 years old, and you are exactly brave enough for this moment, and not yet aware that the moments ahead will ask for considerably more. Level 2, the second and third year. You understand the house now. Or you think you do, which is its own kind of understanding. There is a hierarchy inside Gryffindor that no one explains and everyone enforces. Courage has a currency here, not the kind that arrives quietly, but the visible kind. The kind that gets witnessed. A detention taken without flinching. A confrontation in the corridor that you didn't start and didn't walk away from. These things circulate. People remember them. You learn what the house rewards, and you learn it without being taught, the way you learn anything that operates through social pressure rather than instruction. What the house does not reward, and this takes longer to see, is the quieter version of courage. The student who tells a difficult truth in a private conversation. The one who chooses not to laugh when the laughter is aimed at someone who can't defend themselves. These moments happen and then disappear, unwitnessed, uncirculated. The common room doesn't erupt for those. No one moves to make space. By third year, you have friends. Real ones. The kind built from shared meals and late nights and the particular intimacy of people who have seen each other frightened. This is the thing Gryffindor does that nothing else can replicate. It puts you in proximity to people who face things alongside you, and that proximity, over time, becomes something you would do almost anything to protect. This is important. Remember this. The thing you would do almost anything to protect is also the thing the house will eventually use to ask the most from you. Level 3, the fourth year. Something happens this year that you don't have clean language for. A decision, yours ordinary seeming, made in a corridor on a Tuesday, has consequences that land on someone who wasn't part of the decision, a friend. Someone who trusted the radius of your judgment and stood close enough to be inside it when things went wrong. They don't blame you. That's the part you will carry longest. They don't blame you. And their not blaming you is somehow heavier than blame would have been, because blame would have given you somewhere to put it. You learned something about Gryffindor courage this year that the welcome feast didn't mention. It is not the same as protection. You can be brave, genuinely, functionally brave, and still fail to shield the people standing next to you. Bravery moves forward. It is directional. It does not always cover the ground on either side. The common room still feels like home. The fire still goes in the evenings. The red curtains are still there. Nothing about the physical space changes, and this is its own quiet cruelty, that a place can look identical while you move through it differently, carrying something new that nobody else can see. You don't talk about it. This is also very Gryffindor. The house that asks you to face everything somehow never quite teaches you to face the things that live inside the facing. The aftermath. The weight that doesn't resolve. You are 14, and you are learning the difference between courage and invincibility. No one warned you there was a difference. Level 4, the 5th year. This is the year the institution fails you openly, and you keep showing up anyway. Umbra derives with ministry backing and educational decrees, and a smile that never reaches her eyes, and dismantles the version of Hogwarts you trusted piece by piece with the particular efficiency of someone who has done this before. Defense against the dark arts becomes a theory class. Theory of not learning. Theory of being told that what you know to be true is not true, repeated until the repetition is supposed to replace the knowledge. You sit in those classes and write what she dictates and keep your face arranged correctly, and the cost of this, the sustained daily cost of performing compliance while internally refusing it, is something the OWL results will never reflect. The DA is Gryffindor courage in its truest form, and also its most dangerous. A group of people deciding collectively that the official version of safety is not good enough, and building something real in a room that doesn't appear on the Marauder's map. You feel more yourself in those sessions than anywhere else this year. More honest. Then the year ends the way it ends, and someone doesn't come back from the Department of Mysteries, and the grief is enormous and clean and terrible. And Dumbledore explains things he should have explained earlier, and you stand in the rubble of a year that asked everything and took something permanent. Gryffindor taught you to be brave enough to walk in. Nobody taught you what to do when what you walked into didn't give everyone back. Level 5, the 6th and 7th year. The war stops being something that happens to other people. It comes for the castle directly now, through the people who don't return after summer, through the names that appear in the prophet with a particular kind of language, through the empty chairs at the Gryffindor table that nobody moves to fill, because filling them feels like agreeing that the person isn't coming back. 6th year ends on the tower. You don't need the details repeated. You know the details. What you may not have fully accounted for is what it does to the ones who were inside the castle when it happened, who heard it, who ran toward it, who arrived too late and stood in the aftermath in the particular stunned silence of people whose version of safe has just been structurally revised. 7th year is a year that many of you don't spend at Hogwarts at all. You are elsewhere, doing what needs doing, operating on the logic that Gryffindor installed across 6 years. Keep moving, face it, don't stop. The logic works. It keeps you functional when functional is the only thing between you and the alternative. What it doesn't do is prepare you for the Battle of Hogwarts. Not because you aren't brave enough. You are. Gryffindor made sure of that. What it didn't prepare you for is standing in the Great Hall after, looking at the faces on the floor, and understanding that courage was never going to be enough to save all of them. You always knew the cost in the abstract. Now you know it by name. Level 6, after the battle. The castle is rebuilt before you are. This happens faster than you expected. The walls, the towers, the staircases that used to move on Thursdays. Magic is efficient with stone. It is considerably less efficient with the other things. You move through the restored corridors, and they look correct. Exactly correct. The Great Hall's ceiling reflects the autumn sky. The common room fire is going. The 4 poster beds have red curtains, same as the first night. Same as every night across 7 years. You sit on the edge of your old bed and the room is quiet and you wait for something. Some feeling of return. Some sense that the place recognizes you the way it used to. And what comes instead is a very specific kind of silence. You survived. This is real and it matters and you know it. But survival and wholeness are not the same thing, and Gryffindor, for all it gave you, did not make that distinction clear. The house trained you to go through things. It did not train you for the other side of them. The friends who made it are changed in the same way you are changed, visibly fine, functionally present, carrying something behind the eyes that wasn't there before 5th year, before the tower, before the Great Hall floor. You recognize it in each other without naming it. You sit together in the evenings, and the fire is the same fire, and something is different in all of you, and none of you have a language for it yet. The sorting hat placed you here because you had nerve and daring and courage. It didn't ask if you were ready for what courage would cost. You were 11. You said yes without knowing what you were agreeing to, and the house took you at your word. And you were never, not once, not ready for the end. But you went anyway. That, in the end, is what Gryffindor actually means.